Annual membership meeting. I am Gina Trask, board president of Southeastern, and I have the honor of welcoming you to our first in-person meeting since 2019. Yay! 4 years ago, our membership met at West Point. Thank you, Chris. And since then, the incredible and nimble staff at Southeastern has been hosting virtual meetings. This year, we're trying something new. We have a hybrid meeting. So I want to say hello to everyone who's live streaming. And this technology has allowed us to all stay connected despite our schedules and our locations. So I want to thank everyone who's in the room and online for spending part of your day with us. This event is not possible without the generosity of our host institutions. Today, I want to thank all of the staff at FDR who were involved with making this event possible, with a special thanks to Bill Harris and Kirsten Carter in the back of the room. Thank you so much. Today's meeting consists of two components. The first part is a membership meeting, and the second part is a keynote address. For our membership meeting, you'll see on the screen here that we'll be approving the minutes from last year's meeting, announcing the trustee election results, updating you all on Southeastern activities, and presenting the Twila Snead Awards, plus a special trustee recognition. We will then take a break before the second half of our event featuring the address by Dr. Audrey Barbakoff, entitled Serve Our Community Creatively by Thinking Like a Designer. To access today's materials, you can visit the official website for the meeting that is also printed on the handout that you received when you came in. And for everyone who's watching us live, there was a link in the email that you received today. Here you can find the minutes from last year, information about the year in the review, our Twila Snead recipients, and more. It is now my pleasure to welcome our next speaker, Bill Harris, who's the director of the Franklin D. Roosevelt Presidential Library and Museum.
Thank you so much, and welcome. It is such a pleasure to see all of you here today. We work at a historic site and with a museum as well as our archives, and just to have people on site after the long and of course essential time away is just a wonderful thing for all of us. I'd like to begin today by honoring those who came before us. This site is located on the homeland of the Stockbridge Muncie community of the Delaware Nation of the Delaware Tribe. Despite the forced removal from the land that shaped their culture and their lives, these living nations, that's the very important part of that, the living nations maintain a connection to this land and its resources. We commit to gather with respect to understand our shared responsibility as stewards of this land. In partnership with the authorized tribal representatives from the tribal nations, we work together to build a more inclusive and equitable space for all. And I think that is the perfect lead-in really for this entire meeting, as well as for the work we certainly hope to do here at the Presidential Library. We consider this place as a place of service and a place of community. I know libraries have traditionally embraced that and are very much a part of your community and a place of service. We often are viewed so separate from the world around us. We're set back in these grounds. There's a connection to a president and world events that actually occurred right here. But we know that we are stewards of a public institution. And that institution belongs to all of us, all of you, and especially it also belongs to people who may not always have seen us as a place that belongs to them and as somehow separate from us. And we want to correct that. This is a community organization that belongs to all of the community. That's why I'm so pleased that you're here today, because you do represent the communities. This meeting is in itself a community engagement, and the work you're doing, and I certainly am aware of it, is really impressive. And that we get to play a small role in that is really an honor for us. And we just appreciate you being here today. Because that inspiration for public service really is also reflected in the work of the President and Eleanor Roosevelt. We have an exhibit opening tomorrow, Black American Civil Rights in the Roosevelts, where we explore the impact of citizens on power, of communities of people advocating and joining together to effect change. You all are out there certainly every day as information professionals, as service organizations, doing your part. And that's what we want to do here too, not to sit back from the road behind our nice broad lawns separate from the world, but to go out into that world and to make sure that everyone feels welcome here. So you serve actually as a model for us, and we look forward to learning more from you. We view this, of course, as a duty and a responsibility, but it isn't a heavy one like responsibilities are sometimes felt to be. It's actually a motivating one. It's one that encourages us to get up every day and try harder. And again, we'll look to you all with admiration and great respect. Because affecting change, as we all know, isn't about doing an exhibit. It's about true change and engagement and an embrace of responsibility that ultimately we hope in our own small part of this big world and this changing world, and in many ways challenging and troubling one that's evolving, to help make it better. Now, those are grand words. I always say that to the staff. I sound I'm like, all very grand, but they're not really when you just break them down. They're not grand words at all. They're just the things that we do with our friends and neighbors anyway, aren't they? And so it doesn't seem that complex to me for us as both individuals, professionals in our jobs, and as organizations to also treat everyone that way. So we want to welcome you again. And also the exhibit, feel free, you've got a red badge on pin. And that gives you admission over to the library to see the permanent exhibit. I believe you have 12 o'clock up there at 1 o'clock. Feel free to go into our special exhibit. It opens tomorrow. Just as a word of caution, there may be someone in there. There may be people adjusting lighting. There may be a curator with his hair on fire running through the place. I have great respect for that curator. And I always tell him it's like prima ballerinas or opera sopranos. They're high maintenance, but the output is worth all that work I do. So he's a great guy, and he's done a remarkable job, as has the whole staff, as you all know, in helping others to use information and using it yourself. The archives has, with Kirsten and her staff, has been, it's a relationship that's totally interwoven. It's not separate. So we welcome you to go into the exhibit and have a look around and enjoy it. And also, if you've got feedback, Kirsten, let us know. We're always looking to learn. That's another exciting thing about it is, we set a course and direction and expand our work. We know we're going to make mistakes, and we want to learn from them, and we want to course correct, and we want to be a better public institution. So come back over the weekend. You're welcome to. So we hope you enjoy your visit, and we hope you have a very nice meeting. And thank you for being here today. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Let's see. So the time now is 9:41, and we will open the business portion of our meeting. Several business items are performed during this portion of the meeting, including approving minutes from last year and announcing trustees and officers. Approval of the minutes from June 3rd, 2022, the annual meeting that was held last year on Zoom. Please look at those minutes now on your personal device. I'll give you a moment to review them. Are there any comments or revisions to the minutes? If there are no revisions, then minutes are so approved for June 3rd of 2022. Next up is Becky Albitz, Chair of the Trustee and Officer Nominating Committee.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to share with you the results of the trustee election. And thank you to the governing members who participated in the online election. On behalf of the Trustee and Officer Nominating Committee, I'm pleased to report that one person has been reelected to the Southeastern's Board of Trustees. The newly elected trustee is Gina Trask. Congratulations to Gina, who will start her second term on the Southeastern Board on July 1st. Now I would like to announce the slate of officers for the 2023-2024 Board of Trustees. Gina Trask for President, Becky Albitz, Vice President, Beth Zambito as Secretary, Ellen Rubin, Treasurer, and Floyd Lattin, Assistant Secretary, Treasurer. Please thank our colleagues who volunteered their time and expertise to serve as officers. And now I would like to introduce somebody who needs no introduction, Tessa Killian, Executive Director of Southeastern.
Thank you, Becky. So good morning, everyone. It's so lovely to see you here today. And it's my pleasure to give this report on behalf of the council. So I plan to use my time to talk about some of the newer projects we've worked on with you, our library partners. But before I do that, I want to acknowledge the many people who support this organization. So first up, we have our special guests. I want to welcome, is Jonathan Jacobson in the house yet? Not here yet. Okay. So I'd like to recognize, he might be here today. We'll see if he comes. But I would like to recognize Lydia Bishop, Director of Operations for Senator Rob Rollison, representing the 39th District. Thank you, Lydia, for being here, and thank you to the Senator for his support of libraries and of Southeastern. Lydia showed me a minute ago that they are voting on things as we speak, and he's a big library supporter, so thank you, Lydia. Okay, next I'd like to thank our members. Everybody here in the room and those of you who are attending online, you are why we're here. You're why we're here for this meeting. What makes the council so great is bringing together different types of libraries and organizations to collaborate on projects and to learn and share with one another. You represent many types of organizations, but what you have in common is serving your communities. We are fortunate to live and work in an area with the best presidential library. So let's give yourselves a round of applause for being Southeastern members. And the board. We have an incredibly supportive Board of Trustees at Southeastern. I want to thank them for their leadership, their knowledge, and their support. All the trustees here volunteer their time and serve on 5-year terms. A lot of organizations have 3-year terms now. We have a 5-year term to govern the council. So I particularly wish to thank Gina Trask for serving as board president this year. Thank you. And we have several advisory committees. Oops, I have to remember my slides. I forgot my slides, I'm sorry. There's our list of trustees. It's the 14 members of the board. Okay, advisory committees. We have several advisory committees whose members help the staff and the board in 5 key service areas. The first one listed, the Ad Hoc EDI Committee, was a group that formed together and worked for over a year that helped put together our equity, diversity, and inclusion plans. The group included members, trustees, and staff. And the standing committees we have are for continuing education, digitization, hospital library services, and resource sharing. And we really rely on your expertise to inform our services. So thank you to all of our advisory committee members, some of which are here today. And lastly, I'd like to thank the Southeastern staff. We have grown this past year to a group of 8 full-time staff members. We're listed here by our years of employment at the council, starting with Jen Palmentiero. She's here. Zach Spalding is at the command there. Carolyn Bennett-Glauda. Osha Siegel. Skirden. And Sarah Holstead. So thank you for recognizing their dedication to Southeastern and our member services. I'd also like to recognize Judy Fischetti. Judy, where are you? You're here. Judy is Southeastern's retired resource sharing librarian who worked at Southeastern for numerous years. I didn't list how many, but I think it's close to 20. So thank you, Judy, for being here with us. All right, Gina pointed out the link to our 2022 year in review, which is from the website for today's program. It lists all of our services, our members, and our financials. It also lists like usage data and all kinds of great information about all of our services and things that we wanted to share with you. So it's listed from that webpage. It's like 8 pages long. It's in a wonderful document that overviews all of our programs and services. So I'm not going to get into all those numbers today. I'm going to share some other stuff with you. But I want you to be aware of one of the projects that the staff worked on this year, and it was a series of short videos that we made describing our core services. As part of our strategic plan, we wanted to try a new approach to letting you know about our services and how you can take advantage of them. Working in teams of 2, we recorded videos ranging from 10 to 20 minutes. So there's 6 videos that we made. They're all up online and YouTube, and we hope you enjoy watching them as much as we enjoyed making them. It was fun when we did the dress rehearsals for them. Let's keep that in mind when you watch them. All right, so next I'm going to share some highlights of our newer collaborative initiatives. Starting with our equity work, our primary focus of this past year. The Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Guide was created by the Ad Hoc EDI Committee for Southeastern to incorporate these principles into our internal practices, programs, and services. With the help of a consultant, Dr. Kawana Bright, the committee's work culminated with this document approved by the Board of Trustees in January and posted on our website. The committee's vision for the guide is a go-to document to consult when planning any project, program, or service at Southeastern. One of the first action steps we took to implement this guide was to assist libraries ready to make changes at their libraries. We did this by funding assessments and strategic planning initiatives for 3 members who received a stipend to work with Dr. Bright, the planning consultant, throughout 2023. Since July 2021, we have been actively involved with digital equity, a primary focus of the region's Advisory Council on Libraries, chaired by Grace Viario, the New York State Library, and Library Systems. Our involvement started with the grant we received from the IMLS using American Rescue Plan, or ARPA funds, to support digital inclusion projects. This project that you see here, Digital Navigators of the Hudson Valley, trained 83 digital navigators working in 45 libraries and organizations. They began by training to become trusted guides who assist community members in accessing and using technology. They met with hundreds of clients and it had over 1,200 interactions with them, helping with affordable broadband and connectivity, affordable and appropriate devices, and basic technology and digital literacy needs. According to our partners at the National Digital Inclusion Alliance, we have the largest cohort of navigators in the country. Yeah. This was accomplished because of the partnership with the Mid-Hudson Library System, the Ramapo-Catskill Library System, and the willingness of 83 individuals to take on this added responsibility at their libraries, and for Carolyn's management of the project. We did this. I'm really proud of all of us. This heat map shows the zip codes served by the digital navigators in the Hudson Valley, so that should give you an idea of that's the Hudson Valley. Basically, we blanketed it. with digital navigators. The goal of the service and all digital inclusion projects is digital equity, which will exist when everyone has the technology and internet needed for civic and cultural participation, employment, lifelong learning, and access to essential services. As long as the digital divide exists, we will continue helping individuals with their digital literacy needs and get us all to an equitable place. The success of this program and the prospect of additional funding will allow us to continue into 2023. So we're really excited to announce that. More information will be available soon, but we are going to continue Digital Navigators of the Hudson Valley. So we're super excited to continue this work. A new project that we're working on involves partnering with New York State's Connect All office and the Public Library System partners. The Connect All office is tasked with implementing the governor's Connect All initiative, a comprehensive plan to bring affordable, high-speed broadband service to all New Yorkers. This office and its initiative are funded with both federal and state monies. Much of this plan involves infrastructure and affordable housing connectivity, but we're working with just one part of the plan, very important part of the plan, the statewide digital equity piece. What they learn through this work will inform the rest of the work. So to learn more about New York's needs, the Connect All office released a statewide digital equity survey to gather information about barriers and challenges to internet access. This input will help New York State create the digital equity plan to ensure everyone can access affordable internet devices, skills training, and digital support. Our task in libraries is to get hard-to-reach populations to take the survey, and this is where we're asking libraries to help with these efforts. Everyone in New York can take the survey, so please do so. It's open until the end of June. Carolyn sent out a newsletter yesterday with information about how to take the survey and how you can help. Next, I want to feature an old project. It's finished. A project implemented by the Public Library Systems, RCLS in Mid-Hudson, Beyond the Wi-Fi Access Project. Funded by the ARPA grant, 64 libraries have Wi-Fi devices or extenders installed outside their buildings, providing internet signals beyond their walls and hours. If you've not seen one, which I had not, because I did all the paperwork for this, they did all the work. So I didn't know what one looked like until Grace sent me the final report. And I'm showing you all, in case you haven't seen one outside of a building, it kind of looks like a spider. That is a Wi-Fi extender, and that is the wonderful device that provides internet access outside their building. And then we have a picture of a Rosendale community with their new gazebo that has a Wi-Fi extender probably inside somewhere. So next time you're at a public library, you want to look up when you're outside for the Wi-Fi extender. So this was a monumental task to identify the libraries, purchase the equipment, install them all within a very tight time frame that we had for the ARPA grant. The data they shared with me for the final report showed an uptick in their Wi-Fi usage since they were installed, which means they're being used. So I want us to congratulate Mid-Hudson and RCLS staff for taking on this project and seeing it through to the end. A major part of what we do involves our digitization services. 65 members, that's more than half of you, have digital collections hosted in New York Heritage, our newspaper portal, or have online exhibits. 2 new collections documenting higher education in the Hudson Valley went live in New York Heritage this year. One is from images of Claverack College from the Claverack Public Library, and that's the image on the left, and college history materials from Columbia Green Community College. They joined long-established collections like the SUNY New Paltz yearbooks, which continue to be the most used collection from our region in New York Heritage. They've had over the yearbooks at New Paltz have had over 450,000 page views since 2020. So congratulations to New Paltz. That's pretty impressive. And it shows that yearbooks are used. People love yearbooks. Additionally, members in Kingston have several new collections worth noting. The Friends of Historic Kingston posted a collection of signs in and around Kingston. These are signs on like store building signs, building advertisements, truck lettering, and the billboards like the one you see here. Preparing for this, I spent a long time looking at these pictures. I couldn't stop. They are so beautiful. We also have a new oral history collection, which is a collaboration between the Kingston Library and the Rear Center for Immigrant Culture and History. And the Hudson River Maritime Museum posted a fantastic set of images from Tracy Brooks, who photographed Hudson River steamboats. And this is an excellent look at how the river was used for transportation in the last century. They don't exist anymore, so they exist through the photographs, and we have so many of them posted. There's so much more to see in New York Heritage. And this is just a taste of what's there. We have 6 new members who all joined to participate in these collaborative sites. They are from Columbia and Greene counties, and in Ulster County, we have the D&H Canal Museum. So I'm curious to see where they will be a year from now. Another IMLS grant we were involved with is through the New York State Archives Partnership Trust in a collaboration with the Hudson Library and the Orange Ulster BOCES and managed by Kelsey. It's called Consider the Source. Over the past year, we identified collections of primary source material for communities that have been underrepresented and made them accessible to teachers. The resources in Consider the Source include curriculum materials developed by teachers and involved in the project. Notably, we created 2 sets of curriculum documenting New York's urban renewal, and those collections are, one of them is about Newburgh, and the other one features Hudson, New York. Important part of New York's history. Our 8th annual CENICON was held in April, and it was a hybrid event. There were about 20 people in the room, as you can see pictured here, and there were about 40 more who were online. All of the sessions were from regional libraries, including group presentations from West Point and SUNY New Paltz. The presentation slides and videos are all up in our LibGuide, so you can watch them there. A few upcoming events include a program that Carolyn's planning on artificial intelligence, an ACR roadshow for our college libraries on research data management, and many special interest groups that we have planned. And back in person this fall is the annual Children and Teens Literature Conference called Fall into Books, and that will be in Newburgh. Okay, we're conducting an annual survey, another survey, which opened yesterday. New York requires us to do this annually, and many of the questions are about our services, and they're required by the state. But additionally, we asked some other questions, one of which is posted here. What areas do you think your organization excels? Last year, you overwhelmingly said that you excel at public and patron services and collection development. To me, service to our communities, our collective strength, is something we should celebrate. So we'll ask this question again. So please answer it, and all the other questions that we ask that tell us how you're doing and tell us how we're doing. So we appreciate that feedback. So this concludes my tour of what's new. We're so honored to work with you on all of these projects and more. We look forward to further partnerships. I think we've had the tightest number of partnerships in the last few years than I've experienced in my 22 years working here. And I really thank you all for being part of it. And we will email you a link to the evaluation and a copy of the slide deck with the links. And I see that a special guest just arrived. Let him put his stuff down there. All right. So I'd like to welcome the Honorable Jonathan Jacobson. Well, thank you so much for being here. Jonathan Jacobson represents the 104th District, and we really appreciate that you came to our meeting. So thank you, and thank you for all of your support to the libraries in your district and to Southeastern. Our zip code is in your district, so thank you.
When it comes to spending money for Albany, we get the biggest bang when we give it to libraries. See, it goes right to the people that need. And it's my honor and pleasure, it's just great to see how well and how libraries have evolved and what they do.
Thank you. All right. We're going to move on to our awards. So I would like to introduce Mary Jo Russell, Planning Committee Chair, who will introduce and present the Twila Snead Award.
I'd like to congratulate our 2023 recipients. I would like to start out with a brief introduction about the Twila Snead Award. It is named in memory of a very talented, dedicated medical librarian, colleague, and one of my best friends. It is in the spirit of the commitment to the betterment of librarianship that we present this award. For 2023, the awards committee was faced with two excellent nominations. We couldn't decide. So we broke precedent, and today we are actually giving out two awards. I would like to introduce our first award recipient, Lisa Gomez. Lisa, would you please come forward? Lisa Gomez is librarian at the United States Military Academy at West Point, works directly with the Department of History and the cadets from the Black History Project to create and host the exhibit, Foundations, Black Experiences of West Point. The exhibit was created to celebrate Black History Month and remained on display at the USMA Library through the month of March. The large-scale gallery exhibit included audio clips, video clips, and an interactive assessment. The exhibit opened with much acclaim and photo taking. According to her nominators, Lisa was the key to its resounding success. Lisa then digitized the entire exhibit, where it remains permanently available on the USMA Library website, and I highly encourage you to go and take a look at it because it is truly amazing. The digital exhibit includes information and artifacts from the Revolutionary War to the present day and highlights important holdings from the library and the archives at West Point. It is with sincerest appreciation to Lisa for her tenacity in bringing everything together to make the exhibit a physical reality and for creating a digital presence that now all of us can view. So we present to you the Twila Snead Award.
Thank you.
She has prepared remarks.
Thank you all so much. Thank you to Southeastern's Board of Trustees, staff, to my wonderful colleagues and leadership for the nomination. I'm truly honored to be a 2023 recipient of the Twila Snead Commitment to Excellence Award for the Foundation's exhibit. The exhibit's mission was to foster a deeper and more complete understanding of West Point's history and the diverse people who built and shaped the institution. Libraries have been empowering people by offering resources, services, and training to expand their knowledge for thousands of years. And it's the people inside the libraries and the people who support them that allow the knowledge to be accessed. And the passion, this passion was incredibly evident in the enthusiasm to which practically every staff member in our library jumped to assist this project in any way possible. The responses from our community, particularly the cadets, staff, and alumni of color, made everything. It was so meaningful, and I'll never forget it. So I'm incredibly proud and inspired by this project and to be part of the library community and profession. Thank you all so much. I'm so honored. Thank you.
I'd now like to ask Jen to come up and introduce our next recipient.
Hi, everybody. Jen Palmentiero at Southeastern. I just want to say congratulations to Lisa real quick. If you haven't checked out the online exhibit, please do. It's really awesome. So now I am happy to announce the next recipient of this year's Twila Snead Commitment to Excellence Award, the Putnam County Historian's Office, for their dedicated effort to develop the African American History in Putnam County collection and for the ways they engage their local community in the discovery and dissemination of the stories held within. So I would like to invite Jen Cassidy, County Historian, and Sally Seifert, Deputy Historian, up here to accept their award. stand on the X. We mark everything out. Miss Sally. Okay. So as you know from Tessa's slide, I've been at Southeastern for 23 years. My whole entire professional career has been at Southeastern and specifically working with historical and archival collections. And I learned very early into my career that historically libraries and archives did not collect materials from, about, and for people of color or other minority and marginalized groups. But over the course of my career, I've watched our profession, both at the macro level out there and locally in the Hudson Valley, try to address that and address the underrepresentation in their collections and the stories that they tell. So I'm honored today to acknowledge Putnam County Historian's Office work in this area, their journey to correct the noticeable absence of specifically Black history materials in their collection began a number of years ago. And today their African American history in Putnam County collection covers a variety of topics, but it also includes stories of individuals, of families, of businesses, of events. And oftentimes these stories come together through piecing together census data, with other local government documents, with maps, with historical newspaper clippings. You know, you kind of have to be a detective to kind of unearth these stories. And they've been doing this work. And what is really notable, and one of the reasons they're getting this award, is how they've engaged their local high school community in both the research and the telling of these stories. So whether it's been through a county internship program or direct engagement with classrooms, high school students have helped to research and tell these stories. And the high school students have shared these stories through posters, through presentations, through articles, through videos, and also, which is really cool, is the placement of the first historical markers in the county to commemorate Black history. And for this and more reasons that I don't have time to share today, I'm excited to present the Putnam County Historian's Office with the Twila Snead Award. So here you go. And would you like to say a few words? Okay.
And to be awarded, and in Miss Snead's memory, to have her friends here, it's really meaningful to us because we're not librarians, but we need the librarians, and we're very grateful for the partnership we have with our local library because they exhibit the posters that the students and I work on, and Sally and everyone. And something of interest, if you see in the upper right corner, that's Nina DeFazio, and that was her just this past February at a Black History celebration. And in that poster series, she promoted the history of cakewalks. And what did we just read about in the New York Times? That the first African-American Oxford Dictionary, one of the first 10 words is cakewalk. So it warms my heart that she was on the cutting edge of making new history. So would you like to say anything, Sally?
All I know is that when we started this, it was not a project, and it was a little bit this, a little bit of that, and you made it sound like we knew what we were doing.
So thank you all very much, and thank you, Jen.
And now I would like to invite Tessa and Gina back up. Yes?
Mary Ellen. Okay, now we're going to take a few minutes to celebrate Mary Ellen Leimer, a Southeastern trustee completing her 5-year term this month. Mary Ellen has served on the board with a few required breaks since 1996. That's 27 years. For many of these years, Mary Ellen represented the library and then the school district. She served in many leadership positions as a trustee, including multiple terms as president, treasurer, and secretary. I want to extend our sincerest gratitude to her for choosing Southeastern and our mission as a place to dedicate many volunteer hours and years of service. She assisted us in making many decisions in good times and tough times, but stayed with us through all of them. In her retirement from Newburgh, from the school district, she continued to be on the board and to volunteer her time to us. When she became a grandmother, she continued to volunteer her time to us. Brought her granddaughter to Zoom meetings, brought her granddaughter to headquarters, but continued to participate in Southeastern activities. A few years ago, as a new director, I found a lot of value in Mary Ellen's organizational memory and history of the organization. It was particularly helpful to me. Also her dedication to the council, it's kind of infectious. Like, she's like, this is a special place. I'm like, it is a special place. I love it too, and I work here and it's great. But increasingly over the years, I have found a lot of value in her friendship. You're really friends with someone when you can pick up your cell phone and call them at dinner time and have a chat about stuff that's going on. So for that, I am personally very thankful. So on behalf of the entire organization, I extend our deepest appreciation to Mary Ellen. Your dedication to libraries, remarkable leadership, and genuine care have touched the lives of countless trustees, staff, and library workers. So Mary Ellen, your service and contribution to Southeastern will be forever part of our history.
It's not over yet. I have a few words too. So as Tessa elucidated, that Mary Ellen's service to the board is commendable. She inspires service in others and models excellence in leadership. In her most recent term as board president, I served as vice president, and I had the fortune to learn from her experience and wisdom. So thank you, Mary Ellen, for showing me the ropes. In closing, let us offer a resounding applause again in honor of Mary Ellen. We are eternally grateful for your service, and your presence will be sorely missed. Thank you. At Southeastern, we have a tradition of presenting trustees with a gift of an ALA Read picture. This year, we're giving Mary Ellen two. One of just her with her book, The Wizard of Oz, which you see up on the screen, and then one with both Mary Ellen and her granddaughter, Ellie. Would you like to say a few words?
To all the Zoom meetings. Oh, sorry. Usually, I don't Ellie came to all the Zoom meetings, and she's a very good girl. But there were times when she was on the screen during our discussions, and Ellie has a thing she likes to do when she feels nervous. I don't know why she felt nervous at a Southeastern board meeting, but she grabs your ear and she massages your ear. So many times as I sat there trying to lead a conversation, she was massaging my ear. I just wanted to say that I started my affiliation with Southeastern in 1987. So that is a very long time ago. I know there are people in this room that weren't even born by then. But it took many shapes and forms. And regardless of what it was, I enjoyed what I was doing. I learned lots of things. I met great people, and I made lasting friendships with many of those people. So it's my turn to say thank you for a minute. First, to the staff of Southeastern. They are the most patient bunch of people I have had the pleasure to work with. They epitomize the statement that there's no dumb question, because I would call and have dumb questions, and they would walk me through whatever I needed help with. I want to point out particularly Zach, who last year they tried to get me to use Google Docs, which I resisted. And he was able to help me change a document from a Google Doc, because I didn't want to work with it, to a Word doc. So thank you very much. You are a saint on earth, Zach, for sitting and working through that with me. Southeastern is indeed very lucky to have all of you who are staff members here. Thank you. I want to just say something to the current board that's here, former board members that are here. I'm sure many of you in this audience have either experienced or witnessed, seen dysfunctional boards of trustees. However, that is not the case in Southeastern. No matter what the topic, no matter what the challenge, no matter what the opportunity, we always had respect for one another. We trusted one another. And I personally always felt valued and safe at Southeastern. To Tessa, a huge thank you. I am honored to call Tessa my colleague, but more importantly, my friend. Southeastern is in a place of distinction, both regionally and statewide, because of Tessa's leadership and her pure dedication to this council, to you as members, to us as board members, and to the staff. Working with you all, some of my old Newburgh people are here when I was the director of Newburgh. Working with all of you in many different capacities has been a privilege, and I am very grateful. Thank you.
With that beautiful end to our meeting, it is, 10:19. That closes the official membership meeting. At this time, we're going to take a 15-minute break. So we ask that you come back to your seats at 10:35 so we can listen to our featured presentation by Dr. Audrey Barbakoff. Thank you.
The chime worked. Thank you, Mary Jo. All right, welcome back. I hope you had a good second breakfast. Wait for people to get settled. All right, so it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Audrey Barbakoff. Audrey is the CEO of CoLab Capacity. Her background is in public libraries, and she now runs her own consulting business. Dr. Barbakoff I looked on her website. I'm so impressed. She's a librarian, a consultant, a coach, which I didn't realize, a speaker, and an author of many different types of books. She specializes in community partnerships and leadership. We invited Dr. Barbakoff to our meeting to help us learn how to think like designers. Dr. Barbakoff traveled here today, or this week, from Washington State. So we're so happy to have you as our first in-person annual meeting speaker in several years. So we found somebody who could travel almost as far as possible in the United States, except for Alaska or Hawaii, to come to be our annual meeting speaker. I look forward to an engaging and interactive session with you. And so let's give Dr. Barbakoff a warm welcome.
Oh, I do need the clicker. Hello, well, thank you so much for having me. It is an honor to be your first in-person speaker since COVID. So I'm thrilled to be here. Tessa did not warn me that the nickname of this area was Allergy Valley. And Washington State has mostly deciduous trees. So I will consider this presentation a rousing success if I do not cough directly into the microphone at any time. So please bear with me for the occasional cough and the cough drop mouth sound. All right. So with that, you are all incredible advocates for your communities, builders of community. And community is my passion. It's why I'm here. It's why I do what I do. My area of scholarly research is building capacity in organizations for equity, diversity, and inclusion through community-led and community-centered planning. So I'm really excited to be here to talk with you about a really simple action-oriented way that you can, a method you can put into action today, tomorrow, maybe tomorrow, not today. Today you're going to take tours of the museum. It's going to be great. But and something that you can put into action, into practice right away to increase your ability to really effectively respond to your communities. And when I say community, that is not a synonym for the public. I know many of you are public libraries and many of you are not. So when I say the community, I mean the people that you serve, right? And that could be in a corporation, that could be in a college, right? Whatever type, in a healthcare setting, whatever type of library you're in, you have a community and you are serving them. And design thinking, the method I'm going to talk to you about today, comes from outside libraries completely. It comes from industrial and software design. And so the way we apply it to libraries, that means it's flexible, right? It can be applied in a public setting. It can be applied in an academic setting, in a healthcare setting, in a historical society setting. So even if you hear kind of the public library tint of language in my speaking, when I say community, I mean whoever it is that you are serving. And when we think like designers, when we take these tools that come from industrial design, from software design, we can make a huge difference in the way that we respond to our communities. So what do I mean by that? Why should we adopt someone else's technique for thinking and planning? So, does this thing have a laser pointer? Well, it doesn't matter. Okay. At design thinking, right, what we are really doing is trying to bring together the desires and aspirations and hopes and needs of our communities with the resources that we have in our libraries and sustainable solutions, right? Actions that we can take that aren't just one-time things, right? Things that we can do, that we can continue to invest in, that we can learn from, that we can scale. When we do all of those things together, when those intersect, amazing things happen, right? So often we see our community needs, right? Or we see our community goals and aspirations and we think, this is too big for the library, right? That there are all of these social issues, broader things going on in the world where libraries can have influence, right? Can have a bearing on it, but we can't solve the problem by ourselves. Or we can't fully seize the opportunity by ourselves. So where the magic happens in libraries is when we think about these big community aspirations and needs and desires, but we merge them with, what can the library really do? What's the library's unique role? So we're not trying to be all things to all people all the time, but we're bringing together what does our community need with what do we know best, what do we do best, and how can we come up with ways to make that sustainable? So using design thinking is going to allow us to live in that middle intersection where magic happens. And it's fun, and it's exciting, and it's fast-paced, and we're going to do some of it here today. So you won't have to listen to me yak too much, because you're going to get to talk to each other, which is the best part of being here in person today, I know. All right. Design thinking lets us act quickly but thoughtfully. It stands in contrast to what's sometimes called waterfall planning in software design. And this is often what we do in libraries, where we try to think of everything before we start. We try to make a big, elaborate project plan and think through all the steps and get everything just right. And by the time we're done and we get to the point where we are ready to execute the program or the service, the need is past, or it's changed, and it's no longer relevant, right? Or we put a lot of effort into something up front, and then it doesn't quite work. I've certainly had programs in libraries where you spend a lot of time planning and one person shows up, right? You've had that experience maybe, yeah. So we want to be able to act quickly. We want to be able to respond in the moment to what people need. But we also don't want to just dive in without thinking or without being strategic. So design thinking allows us to do both. It's a way of learning by doing. So we are going to act quickly, but in ways that are small and where the risk, we take risks, but in a way that's calculated, in a way that's safe, right? Or manageable, where failure is not fatal. And then we learn from that. We know that things are going to change. We know that we're going to get things wrong. We build that in from the beginning. So there's a process for learning as we go. So that allows us to get right to action, but also to be thoughtful and to learn and to plan. So it gives us that really nice balance that we often need. It's also a way that we respond meaningfully to our community. When I start talking about the specifics of how design thinking works, the core of design thinking is empathy. The core of design thinking is understanding, listening to our communities. Not making assumptions about our communities, but actively engaging our users or the folks that we would like to be our users, actively engaging them in the process of co-creating our programs and services, the futures of our libraries. That is so powerful. It lets us know in the moment, what do people really care about? We're not guessing. We know. And often in libraries, like, we get the general gist right? We know what people want, right? Or we make a guess and it's a pretty good one because you know your communities pretty well. But the how, right? What happens in that program? How does that service unfold? What are the barriers that people might experience that we didn't see or we didn't anticipate? That's especially true for our BIPOC communities, for our marginalized and excluded and underserved communities. We don't always know what they need or what barriers they experience, right? Or what they like, what's fun. It's not about, it's not all about the negativity. What they want to do, what would bring them joy. So design thinking, by letting us act quickly and co-create with people, this allows us to really respond to our communities in incredibly meaningful ways. Using resources effectively. How many of you have ever been part of a program or a service or an initiative that was really brilliant and really exciting and you could never do it again? Right? It's so dependent on, one visionary person, right, who's holding it all together, who's the linchpin. Or it's so time and resource intensive, right, that even though it's great, it can't be replicated, it can't be scaled, it can't be adapted. It only works in a big system, right? Or it only works in a certain location, or it only works with a certain person. Design thinking is all about starting small, starting where things are easy, starting with what you can do, and being intentional about how you grow and scale. So from the beginning, you're designing not just to have a single splashy moment, but to create something that will be sustainable, that can live beyond one person, that can go beyond one location, right? Or one community or one moment in time, if you want it to, if your community wants it to. Finally, by doing all of this, design thinking helps us live our values. When we center our most marginalized and excluded communities, who are very often our communities of color and our LGBTQ communities and our gender nonconforming communities, when we turn to them, when we empathize with them, when we co-create with them, we are creating more equitable libraries with more inclusive services. So this takes our DEI statements, right? And I'm sure many of us have libraries that have an equity statement or that have a stated value kind of related to accessibility or inclusion or belonging. This is a core value of our profession, right? You see it in the ALA, the American Library Association, right? Core documents. You see it in the International Federation of Library Association, or IFLA. You see it in their core documents. This is something we've committed to as a profession. And it was so exciting seeing the award winners today, right, who are doing exactly that, who are doing this equity work in their communities. When we use design thinking to center our most marginalized and excluded communities, we are doing equity work. and we're gonna have fun doing it, right? So it really reflects our values. It allows us to live our values. Okay, you're like, yes, Audrey, okay, I get it. Design thinking is awesome. Let's do it. What is design thinking exactly? I start you off with a why, because I don't just want to dump you into some dry how, right? I want you to understand and to see like why this matters so that it's worthwhile taking a minute to dive in and think about the how. So design thinking, the initial process came out of Stanford, out of their design school, their D school. They initially outlined the steps and kind of coined this term. Since then, it's proliferated all over. You can find all kinds of things from like, courses from the D school to books on kind of using design thinking in your personal life, right? And everything in between. I have a certification in design thinking from a local college where I sat on the advisory board for their design thinking program, which is interdisciplinary and brings in people from all kinds of different fields. So this started as something, again, very limited to a specific field, and it's really exploded because it's so relevant to the way anyone plans anything or approaches anything. So what is the design thinking cycle? Empathize. This is the heart of the work. It's the most important thing. And empathize doesn't just mean putting ourselves in other people's shoes. It means engaging with them directly, asking them what they care about, what they hope for, what they need, what would bring them joy, right? What would be fun for them? Really listening, really engaging them directly in the planning process. Define. This means making sure we're asking the right question. And when you take sort of design thinking, when you read design thinking literature or take classes, like a lot of the focus is here because this is where people tend to get it wrong. And this is why it's so much fun to do this with librarians, because if anyone knows how to get at what the real question is, it's you, right? That person who comes in and is like, I need the dictionary, but actually what they're looking for, right, is a question about how to estimate the price of their antique rug, right? Yeah. So we know how to define a question so well. So you have a huge built-in advantage here. Ideate. This is coming up with ideas, right? And again, we do this with our communities, not for them or at them. Again, this is another place where many of us have, if not yourself, then someone on your staff, like we have people in libraries who are really strong at this, who are great at coming up with exciting ideas, right? But then it's like, well, what do we do with those? How do we find the resources for those, right? Do we know for sure that our community really wants these things? Like it sounds great, but how do we know it's going to be successful? So by taking that skill that we have for coming up with great ideas for ideating and putting it in this context, we can make it really sustainable, really strategic, really useful, and really responsive to our communities. Prototype. This is really if empathy is the heart of this is kind of the hands. This is how we make this approach happen, how it differs from most approaches, which is that we prototype. We don't try to do it perfectly the first time. We say, what is the smallest version of this that we can get away with? Or what is a way we can model this really simply, where we can get feedback directly, again, from our community, from our intended users. So we test, right? We test that prototype with them, and then we make changes. We iterate. And then we keep doing that, right? I've given this to you as a sort of a single circle, but it's really kind of a bunch of loop-the-loops, right? Because it's not linear. You're going to go back and forth between these, and especially that test and iterate piece. That's not just something we do once, right? That's a cycle. Try something, it doesn't work, learn from that, make some adjustments, try again. So when we use design thinking, we're expecting that to happen. And we don't see that as a failure, right? When something's not perfect the first time, when it doesn't work that well the first time or the second time, we have not failed, right? As long as we are really doing this in connection with our communities, in response to our communities, in hand with our communities, we just need to keep tweaking, right? So failure is not an end state. It's a learning process. Some underlying principles to design thinking that help us kind of parse where these steps come from. So the first is that it's human and user-centered, right? You might see design thinking also called human-centered design. So this is all about people. It's not about the thing that we're making, right? And I think it's easy often in libraries to get wrapped up in the thing, right? We're making this really cool digitization project, right? We're maintaining this amazing and important archive, right? We're building a collection. We're creating a program, right? So really important that this is a type of planning that keeps us centered not on the stuff, but on the people, on the humans, on relationships, right? That's the heart. It's collaborative. Design thinking is not something you can do by yourself in your office. It's not something we can do alone. It's not even something that we can do just with staff unless you're designing something where the users are your staff, right? We have to be working in community in order to make this work. And that's what makes it so special, right? That's what makes it so successful, is that it gives us a method to meaningfully bring our communities in. Beginner's mind, right? This is openness, right? Approaching every new community, every new initiative, not with answers, but with questions. Coming to our communities and saying, I want to learn. I want to learn about you. I want to learn about what you hope for and what you need and what's exciting to you and what barriers you face, right? And again, as librarians, it's tempting sometimes to come in with answers because we're used to people coming to us for answers. But coming in, trying to step away from our assumptions, trying to step away from, well, we've always done it this way, and we have X amount of money that tends to go to this type of resource and this type of program, right? But really coming in just as a blank slate, as a listener, is incredibly powerful, incredibly powerful. Learning by doing, right? This gets at that how of design thinking. We're going to spend some time up front thinking and really empathizing more so than anything else. But where we learn is through action, right? We prototype, we start small, we try things out, and then we have a structured plan to learn from what we do, change it, and try again. We learn by doing, and that's what lets us move quickly, right? That's what makes design thinking fast. And it's what makes it effective, because oftentimes we just don't really know how people are going to respond to something until they have it in their hands, right? Literally or metaphorically. So by giving ourselves a chance to have people put their hands on what we're doing and planning to learn from that, right? Then we know that the changes that we're making are right on. We know they're what people want, right? We're not guessing, we're not assuming. And finally, equity. You could go through the steps of a design thinking process with your usual partners, with the usual suspects in your community, with the people who are front and center in your libraries all the time. And it would be fun. And it would be successful, right? You would get something interesting out of it. And the people that it would serve really well are the same people that you already serve really well. So we have to make an effort to keep equity at the center of this work. Equity never happens by accident, right? It must happen by design because we are in systems that are inequitable by design. So we need to be thinking for ourselves, who is this for? Who do we want to work with? Who in our communities are we trying to support? Who has been marginalized and excluded? And how do we put them at the center? Right? So we need to push ourselves, not just to go through these steps, but to do so with equity in mind. That's a principle that we all have to hold close as we do this work. Okay, that was a lot of theory. And the theory is really important because if you don't have the theory, then when things start happening in real life and they deviate from the steps or the plan, and because we're learning by doing and working with new audiences, things are going to happen we don't expect, right? So we need that theory so we can say, wait a minute, this is not what I was expecting, right? What should I do here? We need to be able to go back to the principles of what we're trying to accomplish. But I also recognize that theory can feel really abstract. So we're going to take a little bit of time at our tables, and I want you to discuss these questions. What about this approach resonates most with you? And how does it show up in your libraries, right? What aligns well with what you already do and what doesn't, right? What's new or surprising or challenging? So let's just take 5 minutes and turn to your tables and have a conversation with these prompts. All right, welcome back. Welcome back. I know it's always hard to cut off these conversations. I have the privilege of getting to float around the room and hear many of them. And I know these are really meaningful and they're the best part, and I always hate to stop them, but I promise there's more fun ones coming and I want to make sure we have time to get to them. Does anyone have a takeaway from your table that you would like to share? What are some takeaways? Yeah, I see a hand. Excellent. Other takeaways? Yeah. And I heard that theme at quite a few tables as well about how do we build relationships, right? How do we get connected with folks? You know, we spent a year, or how do we do this without spending a year, right? Running advisory committees and getting people together, or how do we go beyond surveys? One more. Is there one more takeaway that anyone would like to share? All right. So I think we're going to get into answering some of those questions in particular as we get into the how. Because step one is empathize, and this really gets to how do we make those connections, especially when we don't have them already. I will say sort of separately from this, I'm an enormous proponent of relationship building, of spending time in our communities, just getting to know people, hanging out where people gather, right? Joining other people's committees, coalitions, ad hoc, and kind of grassroots, organizing events, meeting not only formal leaders, but also just Linda, who knows everybody. And if you tell her something, everyone in the community will know it in 20 minutes, right? That as much as you can have a foundation of that before you start this work, or as much as you can do that as you're doing this kind of work, the better, right? That said, when you move into a formal design thinking process, you want to think about who do you want to serve, right? We want to be intentional. This is that equity piece, or part of that equity piece, right? Who is it that we're trying to connect with? Not just who happens to be in front of me, but who do we want to connect with, and in what ways can we actively reach out and invite them to participate? And this is not just a generic, hey, come to our library, which, why would they do that if they don't know what the library has to offer, or don't feel welcome, or haven't historically seen how the library can be meaningful in their lives or in their work? Instead, we're asking them something very specific to participate in a specific process, and we're asking them about themselves. Right? Asking people what they want from the library if they're not library users is pretty useless. They tell you they want more books and more hours. Or they don't want anything because they don't use what you have right now, or they don't know about it, right? We don't want to ask people about the library. We want to ask people about themselves. We want to learn about them. We want to know what they're experts in, which is their own experiences, right? I recently heard someone refer to this as content expertise versus context expertise, right? And valuing lived experience as a real type of expertise, right? That context expertise. We need people who are experts in the lived experiences of our community members. And the only way we can do that we can get to those folks, is by talking to them. So for empathy, we think about who we want to reach, and then we think about how we're going to learn about them. And we want to do this from an asset-based or a strength-based place, right? Libraries are often kind of in the greater milieu of sort of helping our social services. And we are in a society that has an existing paradigm of service organizations as saviors, right? And communities as kind of deficits, as like holes of need that we need to fill. No one likes to be seen that way. No one is going to respond well to us coming to them and being like, you're a pretty sad case. We want to help you. Can you tell us what you need? Right? It's so important that we approach people with respect. And respect means recognizing them for their strengths and their assets and their gifts and their passion and the work that they're already doing, the brilliance they're already showing. So we want to come to people and not say, like, tell us your problems, although those might come out as we have these conversations, but we want to start with, what are your dreams? What are your goals? What are you excited about right now? What are you working towards right now? What kind of world are you trying to build? And that's what we want to ask people about. Then, in that context, we can say, what are some of the barriers that you face to making that dream come true, to making that aspiration or that goal happen? So we don't have to pretend that need doesn't exist or that problems don't exist, but we don't treat people as just as takers, right? And us as the givers. There is no giver-taker divide. We are all contributing. We all have agency. We all want to make the world a better place, right? So think about how you can best connect with the particular community you want to serve, because it's not going to be the same for everybody, right? It's not going to be the same for every specific group. It's not going to be the same for every community. So some of the tools you can use, one-on-ones, right? You can sit down with someone over a cup of coffee. This works pretty much anywhere, right? Like this works with almost any community, but finding people who are connected to the community you want to reach, sitting down with them, having an empathetic conversation, learning about their goals and their hopes, especially if there's a specific question that you're trying to answer or a specific type of service or idea you're trying to develop, right? Talking with people about their hopes and dreams related to that. Those can be like formal, like interviews, where you can use something like, if you're familiar with the Libraries Transforming Communities effort from the American Library Association and the Harwood Institute, and they have a freely available set of questions that can kind of help you through some of these conversations. A lot of the design thinking literature will give you kind of a protocol. Or you can just meet someone in a place where they like to hang out and have a chat, right? So this can be formal or informal. Similarly, you can have conversations in groups, right? If you're doing like kind of a strategic planning process, this can be a formal focus group. Or it can be something where you drop in, right, on an existing meeting or club or social group, right? Get some time from them and see if you can ask them a few questions. Some places this will be really effective. In some communities, this might not be effective, right? You might have people who aren't comfortable speaking in that kind of situation. So you want to be thoughtful about when you use group versus individual conversation. Being where people are, hanging out, leaving the building, right? Just spending some time observing people, talking with people, building rapport with folks about the things that they like and care about and are spending time on, rather than trying to just have an end game of getting them into the library, right? Or sort of doing our classic outreach where we like have the library table, and our goal is to get you to take as many pieces of paper off the library table as possible. Our goal is just to be there with you, to learn about you, to learn from you, to connect with you, to be in relationship with you. So get the table out of the way, right? And just be with people where they are. This is very effective when there are good gathering spaces in your community, as long as you can get buy-in from your leadership. because this is one that sometimes feels hard. I knew a teen librarian once who spent like once a week or a couple times a month would go and play basketball, right, at the Y with the teens. And he built so many relationships that way. And so many teens ended up eventually coming into the library because of the relationship they had with him, right? But it's not always easy, especially if you're short-staffed, which I know many of us are these days, right? Or, you've got a lot of responsibilities to say, you know what? I'm going to take 2 hours and play basketball. Right? That doesn't always feel great. So recognizing that is important, that is a way of building relationships and engaging community, which allows us to do more responsive, more relevant work. So if you can swing that, that's a great method as well. Design thinking literature will talk to you about personas. Personas are essentially a way of making up an aggregate person, right? Someone who kind of represents the population that you want to serve and has many of the characteristics, sort of the same opportunities or dreams and barriers, demographic characteristics, right, as a group that you want to reach. This can be really helpful in that when you're developing something, you can be like, well, we've developed this persona named Debbie, and would Debbie like this program? Is this something that Debbie would come to? What problems would Debbie have with this? Right, so that it gives us kind of a way of recentering the conversation on our users. However, personas can really quickly devolve into stereotypes. So I'm not always a huge fan of this approach. But it is something that's out there. If you go deeper into design thinking, you're going to come across it very quickly. So I want to mention it. It can be really useful, but it really needs to be done with care. All right, I'm going to talk for a minute about specifically how do we build relationships with our most marginalized and excluded communities. Because this is different from just entering into a process of like, let's have a conversation with the local museum or the local Rotary Club or whoever it is, right, that are kind of your base already, your user base already, right, or your, the student group that's already really engaged or the faculty group that's already, that's already well connected with the library. When we're thinking specifically about excluded communities, oh, I can't get this out. All right, we need to do this a little differently. Again, the importance here of starting with relationships and respect is just amplified, right? That's important anywhere with anyone, but when you're talking about excluded communities, these are groups that don't have a base level of trust with us. And as libraries and as museums, we often assume that we have a base level of trust. And we often benefit from that, right? People just have warm fuzzies about libraries, right? But now we're reaching out to populations that don't, that may have active distrust with libraries and with educational institutions or with government institutions, right, if you're public. So it's essential that we start by building some of that trust and not assuming that we have it. So coming into to meet people with that relational approach, with that empathetic approach, rather than with a like, come into our library, right? Or like, oh, I see you have a problem and I'm here to fix it, right? But really approaching people just to be in relationship with them is especially important with communities that we have not served well in the past and maybe are not serving well right now. Again, we want to ask about goals, strengths, and gifts. And then we want to think about how can the library, how can our resources be used to support their efforts? Not how can they come in and help us with what we're doing. Not we have this program planned and we want you to come and be a partner. But what are you working on? What do you care about? What are your goals? And how can library resources help you accomplish those? So it puts the library in a role as platform, library as support agency, support service, right? Rather than kind of trying to pull people into what we're doing. Everyone needs the library to support what they're doing, right? We have amazing resources that can benefit almost any effort. So rather than trying to say, we've come up with what we're gonna do, and we hope you'll come along, you're already doing amazing things. It would be a privilege to get to be a part of that, right? We need to share power. So not just asking people for input, not just putting out a survey, right? not just asking people for their opinion or their ideas and then never coming back to them. Those break trust. It breaks trust when we try to extract information from people and don't give them any power in return. When people talk to us, they're giving us their time. They're being vulnerable with us, perhaps. They are sharing something that is important and meaningful to them. That's a gift. We have to earn that. And similarly, we need to commit to sustaining the relationship. Relationships aren't light switches, right? We can't just turn them on when we wanted to say, like, today we're going to do a design thinking process to plan this program. And now we're done, so goodbye. We'll probably talk to you again in 3 years, the next time someone has time to do something like this, right? We need to commit to sustaining relationships. If we go to people one time and we don't follow through and we don't sustain the relationship, even in a simple way, it doesn't have to be time consuming. It's a couple times a year of just saying, hey, I saw this article and it made me think of you. Hey, can we get some coffee and catch up? Right? It doesn't have to be a big deal. It doesn't have to be time consuming. But if we ask people to participate with us and then we disappear, they're not going to participate next time. Right? So all of these things, while they're valuable for everyone, they are essential when we're working with populations that we have excluded. Okay, we've talked about empathize. The next step in the inspiration phase, kind of the first phase, is to define. What is a meaningful goal or outcome for your user? When we have these empathetic conversations, we go in with that beginner's mind. We might find out that what we thought people wanted isn't what they want, or that people want something that we never imagined, right? So we really need to be open about this. We want to try to get at the root problem that we're trying to solve or the opportunity we're trying to build on, right? Like, what's the real question here? And often, this question is phrased as, how might we? Right? How might we create a program that, for an example from my own life, but how might we create a program that really engages in a meaningful way with Latinx business owners in our community? Right? There's a specific question that we can empathize with people around, that we can, right, we've defined that, we can do work around that question. So knowing the question you're trying to answer helps us move to action, right? Helps us get away from, well, I've asked you about your goals and I've asked you about what you care about. But if you think about that Venn diagram at the beginning, we need now to match that with library resources and sustainable action, right? So the define step lets us go from, okay, we have a general understanding of what people care about and what they want, into what can we actually do? How might we do this thing together? So I'm going to give you some practice with this. I'm seeing a lot of eyebrows. Okay. So I'm going to give you our how might we question. How might we make this the most awesome Southeastern conference ever? It already is, I know, and I also know that we're towards the end of our formal program, but hopefully you'll stick around and do some tours. So how might we make this the most awesome conference experience ever? Who's our intended audience here? Everyone in this room. Easy peasy. Okay, we're gonna take 5 minutes, turn to the person next to you, and you are going to interview them. The questions are, what are they most hoping to get out of today? And what does an amazing conference experience look like to them? What does it feel like? What would they, right, if you said to them, what would be the best conference ever for you, right? What would happen? How would that look? How would that feel? What actions would they do? So learn about their hopes and dreams for an awesome conference experience. And so one person will interview the other, and then you're gonna switch. So just like 2 or 3 minutes each partner. Make sense? All right, go. This conference amazing. So we're learning from each other. We're getting ideas from each other that we can implement in our own libraries, even if it takes a little while. Fantastic. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. More folks of color in the room, more diverse set of people. What else? Yeah, absolutely. I'm not singing, just so you know. Not doing it. Yeah, music, diversity, inclusion, connection, ideas. Right? These are the things that give us energy, that make us want to be here at this conference. Okay. What do you do after you've empathized with people? You've talked to someone, right? Ideally multiple members of the community, but for practice, just the one. What do you do with that? We move into the ideation phase. The idea of ideation is not to come up with one perfect idea right off the bat. It's to come up with as many ideas as you possibly can. And wild and weird and wacky ideas are welcome. Because there's often a real kernel of truth in those, right? There's often something we can really build on, even in the silliest ideas. I've seen people do things like, that involved aliens, like come up with stuff. But there's a reason, right, that they come up with that. So we want to use a yes and environment, right? Ideally, when you're doing this with community, you want as diverse a group as possible, right? From and connected with, of course, your target group of users. But we want, as many different types of positions, backgrounds, lived experiences, identities, right? You want to get as many folks in the room as you can because everyone's perspective brings brings new ideas, brings a different way of looking at what could be done. Right? So the diversity here is really important, having full inclusion, not just so we have people with all kinds of different backgrounds and identities and experiences in the room, but that everyone feels safe to contribute and speak. Very essential. So one of the ways that we can create that psychological safety is yes and. So this comes from improv. Many of you have probably heard about it or used it. But the difference between someone says an idea to you and you say yes and you build on it. And instead of nah, but, right? Because that no, but, right? Even if you don't agree with an idea, that shuts down the conversation. That person feels like their idea wasn't welcome, right? Like they weren't really heard, like they weren't valued. Yes, and still allows you the opportunity to say, to take something in a different direction, but it still validates what came before. It still respects what came before. So that really generates the conversation. People build and build and build and build, right? And they continue to feel welcome and engaged, whereas that kind of naysayer vibe sort of kills the discussion oftentimes. And the goal here, again, is not to get the one perfect idea. It's to get all the ideas. Right? To ideate, to get as many out as we can, as quickly as we can. So there's also other ways to do this other than just having a group conversation. Again, that might be a place where not everyone feels like they can speak, whether that's because of systems of oppression that silence, right, BIPOC folks and women and gender nonconforming people and many, many other groups. But it could also just be, I'm a slow processor. I'm an introvert. I don't like to speak up in a big group. Right? I don't like to be sort of pressed to do things fast in a brainstorming session. That's not fun for me. There are other ways to do this, right? You can have people write their ideas and then share them. And that's actually a really good way of getting around groupthink. If you do those kind of big brainstorming sessions, oftentimes the first idea, which is, comes from your most extroverted person, right? Just whoever happens to speak up first, that really shapes the whole conversation. Even if people don't mean for it to, everything else sort of becomes a reaction to those first couple of things that we hear. So if you have people write down their ideas before you talk about them, oftentimes you'll get more diversity, you'll get more creativity, right? Because people are just thinking about their own ideas before they've had a chance to be shaped by anybody else. So brain writing instead of brainstorming. You can also do this in a lateral way. You don't have to ask people to speak ideas or write ideas. Most design thinking will have you draw. And I always get like a big groan, and guess what? Spoiler alert, I'm gonna make you draw. But that uses a different part of our brains, right? It gets our creativity going in a different way. So you can unlock a lot of ideas by drawing, by doing collage, right? By expressing your ideas, by storyboarding, right? By putting your ideas out in a visual way rather than, in a narrative way. So there are a lot of different ways to do ideation, but the big picture is we want to collect a lot of ideas from a lot of different people. Okay, surprise, practice time. So I'm going to have you go back to your partner. And based on what they said would make their conference amazing, you're going to come up with 3 ideas for what you can do today. Right? You can do this in conversation with the person that you talk to, right? You can bounce back and forth a little bit. You can sort of think for yourself first and then discuss. But the key here is I'm not giving you a lot of time. 3 ideas, I'm going to give you 3 minutes. So get out your paper. Your sec. Three ideas in 3 minutes. On your mark, get set, go! Let's come on back. I know, this part's really fun. Hard to stop. If you can hear me, clap once. If you can hear me, clap twice. If you can hear me, clap 3 times. I was a children's librarian at one point. Okay. Let's hear some ideas. What'd you come up with? Share the weirdest, wackiest one you've got. Share an idea. Off the wall's great. Oh, yeah. Hot tub. Okay, cool. Cash prizes. Okay. What else? What are some of the actions that you thought you might that we could take to make this conversation, these conferences amazing? Yeah. Oh, hey, I'm hearing a lot of enthusiasm for that. Hey, everyone, get up and go to a different table. I'm not kidding. Get up and go to a different table. Mix it up. All right, I said design thinking was all about a bias for action, right? We learn by doing, so there you go. Action in in practice. All right. 1 or 2 more ideas. Yeah. Happy hour. Yeah. All right. Does this place have like a bar or restaurant that's open afterwards? Okay, you're in charge of organizing the happy hour for after the museum tours. There you go. Okay, 2 o'clock happy hour, she's in charge. All right, 1 more. Yeah. Meal at the end, okay. Oh, I just heard a lot of like, oh yeah. Yeah, a lot of agreement. Move the networking time to the end so that you've had a chance to meet some new people. Love it. So some of these ideas are like big and crazy and impossible, maybe in their exact form. And some of them are really immediately doable, right? And some of them might be easily doable for next year. So, but out of all of those, we learned something, right? Like, I think our first idea was hot tubs, right? Which you're like, okay, maybe not happening, but this is about having fun together, right? About spending some time chilling out together. Well, happy hour is about that too, right? Changing the time that we have a meal, it's about that too. So we're still, even those ideas that are off the wall get at the heart, the root of what we're trying to do together. And they help us find the thing, right? Or the things that we can really do together, the actions that we can take, starting small. Okay. So I said that ideation phase, we don't need one idea. We need all the ideas, right? Prototyping and testing is where you start to hone that in. Is where you come down to, okay, here are the things we could do. What are we going to do? So you determine what's the idea that you're going to explore, or at least the idea you're going to explore first. Where are you going to start, right? You want to keep this as simple as possible. We don't need to start off super elaborate because we can add. We're gonna iterate. We're gonna do more things, right? So what we're looking for is what is the basic, simple version of your idea. So you can pick an idea that came out of your ideation, or you can say like, hey, we talked about this and we came up with 3 ideas, but they're all sort of variations on a theme. So really the one thing we want to pursue is kind of a mashup, right? Or as we talked about these 3 things, we realized actually there's this other thing that gets at all of those ideas better, right? So it could be something off your list. It could be something that kind of comes out secondarily as a result of your list. But you pick one thing, and then you prototype it. So what is a prototype, right? They say when they were making the first, I'm old, y'all remember Blackberries? Yeah. That the first Blackberry, which was like groundbreaking at its time, right? There was nothing like that yet, or very, very little. The way that they figured out how that was all going to work, like how the difference, how you would navigate between screens and what the functions would be, was a clipboard covered in sticky notes. And he actually like made himself a little, like a piece of cardboard the size of the Blackberry, and would ask people to like, poke where the things would be on this piece of cardboard. And if something was in a weird place or people couldn't find it, he'd move the sticky note, right? So what is the absolute simplest way that you can represent this? So this might be what we think of classically as a prototype, which is like a tiny version of the thing, right? If what you're making is a thing. So if you're designing a space, build it out of Legos, right? Or tape out the floor, right, of where the furniture might go if you're thinking about how you might change a layout, right? So this could be physical, like what's the easiest, simplest thing you can do to get a real sense, something that people can put their hands on, right? What if you're making something that's not physical? What if you're making a program? What if you're trying to create a process? So there are still ways you can prototype this. For a program, that means doing a really quick, simple version of the program, not spending 3 months planning it and doing a ton of advertising and having a lot of build up, but like getting the people that you talked with in the beginning to come on board with you, to co-create it with you, to offer it with you, and then to give you feedback on it, right? In its simplest iteration. Then you can big it up, right? Then you can offer it again, but splashier, bigger, more features, more locations, more times, right? Whatever it is. You can actually, you can offer basically a pilot version of your program. For a process, you can make a journey map. So you can say, what's the experience we want someone to have when they walk into our library? What do they see first? What do they do first, right? Or when people go through this process with us, say the process of checking out an item, right? What do we want them to do first? What do we want them to do next? Where do they run into barriers and snags along the way? So you're essentially storyboarding, right? Or kind of making a timeline. So you can still prototype things that aren't tangible, right? You find a way, some way to try it out in a really small fashion or to make it tangible, right? To have something that people can really respond to, right? Or you build a simple version of that process and you have people try it and you observe them and ask them for feedback. So you prototype. And this is really important, that people are engaging with a version of the actual thing and not just an idea of the thing, right? Because that's where you get nuanced feedback, right? If you give people an abstraction, like, well, what if we did a program about this? Or what if we, simplified our process? People will be like, yeah, that sounds good. That's nice, right? But you don't really see like what makes people's eyes light up, or like where do people get confused and stuck until they actually do it in some way, right? Even if it's kind of a representational way, even if it's like tiny Legos and they're not really to scale and you can't fit the right amount of furniture or whatever, right? But giving people something to really directly engage with, a simple version or a small version, an easy version of what you want to do, really essential for getting good, nuanced feedback so that you can change it, right? So you pilot it, you give this prototype to your users, and you learn from their experience. And depending on what you're doing, you want to have a plan, a specific plan for how you're going to do this learning, right? Are people going to come to this pilot program and then fill out a survey? Are people going to interact with this prototype space where you've got the floor taped out differently? Are they going to stick their responses up on a board in that space? Are you going to sit down with a few people afterwards and have a conversation or have a focus group or just chat with some people one-on-one? So have a plan for how you're going to get feedback. Don't just assume it will come, or that you'll be able to just observe and sort of gather it yourself, right? Your observations are really important. And so is the direct feedback from your community. So have an evaluation plan. What worked? What didn't? What might you change? What's unnecessary that you could remove? What could you add? And again, so we're approaching this now with the idea that it's not going to be perfect. We're not trying to make it perfect, right? We're trying to get a minimum viable product out there for people to engage with and tell us in real time, in their real lives, how well it works for them and how it could work better. And then we're going to iterate, right? We're going to grow and change and redevelop based on what we learn, which brings us right back to here, right? We make a new thing, we make some changes, we update that prototype, or we build a new one if we've decided to go a totally different direction, and we pilot it again, right? Or maybe this time, we've decided it worked pretty well the first time, we're building on it, now we do it a little bigger, right? We sort of move out of that pilot phase, but we still, every time, we gather feedback, we observe, we test, and we improve. So again, the goal is never perfection. The goal is learning. And we're lifelong learners, right? Why do we become librarians? Because we love communities and we love learning. So we are so well prepared for this, right? Give ourselves permission to take the time, not to just do and do and do and do all the time, but also to pause and evaluate. Because we get to move right to action, because we get to move right to doing and learning from that, we don't have to feel so time crunched, right? Because we're doing stuff. We've got programs, we've got spaces, we have boots on the ground. We're doing things for our communities, right? It's not a pause. So it's important that we don't try to skip over evaluation because we're so busy trying to do the next thing. And we all have 3 million more things to do than we have time to do, right? So really important that we spend a little bit of time to do this reflection, because that's what's going to make our product really good, really responsive, more inclusive, more equitable, more fun. Okay. So, you ask yourself as well, so you get your feedback from the users, and then you think, well, what did I learn? Right? What did I learn? Did I learn something new about my users? Right? You had that empathy conversation, those conversations with people in the beginning where you learned about them, but you definitely learn about people by seeing them do things, right? What did you learn about the question you're asking? Did we ask the right question? Should we redefine our how might we question? Right? What did we learn about our prototype or our solution? What needs to change? Make changes, try it again, keep growing. Okay, practice. You're with new partners now, so just turn to the person next to you, look at your ideas together, and for each of you, or you can pick one together, pick one idea Draw it out in more detail. This is your prototype, right? A sketch of whatever your idea is. Prototype it, and then get feedback from your partner. What do they like? What don't they like? What don't they understand? And then make changes. Okay? Prototype, get feedback, make changes. Portion is going to go until 12:15, possibly with a special guest who might be joining us for a few moments. So, if you can hear me, clap once. If you can hear me, clap twice. If you can hear me, clap 3 times. Okay, let's hear like one. How did you change your initial idea based on some feedback from your partner? Let's just hear 1 or 2. Yeah. Sorry, our battery is dying here a little bit. We're cutting in and out. Yeah, go beyond one day. Okay, your idea is putting it on YouTube, cutting in with some music, right? Making it.
All right, we'll use some of the information that you provided in our evaluations of today's program, and you know, who knows what we'll get next year, because this was really great. We got some great ideas and great information. So our special guest is here, our special guest. We have Congressman Pat Ryan, who represents New York State's 18th District, here to say a few words. So thank you so much for joining us. I know you had a busy day, and we really appreciate you popping in to say hello to a room full of library and information professionals.
Hey, everybody. I wasn't expecting to get to do this today, so it's a really nice surprise for me and an honor to be with you all. I just was here to be part of a naturalization and a citizenship ceremony for 49 new citizens of the United States, and it's such a powerful experience, so it's really cool. Well, I grew up in Hurley, so I don't know if there's any Hurley librarians here, but that was my local library as a kid, still going strong. And I know there's some West Point librarians here, so I'm a West Point grad, so thank you. But more than anything, I'm the son of a retired first grade public school teacher. So my mom very much, I'm sure it was because of her. I'm a voracious reader and always have been, and true just appreciator of public libraries in particular. And now in this role, I've been a member of Congress for only 6 or 7 months. But anytime that I get to, anytime I'm in a community, I really try to stop in and appreciate and thank those that are part of whether it's a community library, an academic library, or anywhere in between. I personally think libraries are one of the last bastions of democracy. Yes, honestly, I was struggling for how aggressive to go there. But I really feel that. I mean, it's and also just a place of humanity and community and services and connection. We now live in Gardner. So the Gardner Library has gone through a huge expansion and growth in our community. My 1- and 4-year-old kids now go there to do all kinds of great activities. So I just really feel honored and appreciative to be here with all of you. I represent almost 800,000 constituents across Ulster County, Dutchess County, and Orange County. So in particular, for those of you that are in those areas, on behalf of those 800,000 people, thank you. Thank you for what you do with often very little resources and lots of friction and challenges. So anything that you all need, please, we're actually here doing a staff retreat as well. So on your way out, it's just a great day in Hyde Park. But if you need anything at all, please come and stop in. We're just in the room around the corner here. And it would be my honor and my privilege to do anything to help you and your colleagues and those that you serve. So thank you so much, and have a great day and a great weekend.
That was a pleasant surprise. All right, so thank you everyone for attending today and celebrating with our award recipients and each other. And I want to thank our hosts, Bill Harris and Kirsten Carter. This was really wonderful. Before you disperse, we are collecting name tags where you checked in. If you want to drop off your name tag, please drop it off there. If you want to take one of the tours, you need one of these buttons. They still have some at the table, so make sure you grab one. So what's happening next is that you are, it's, what time is it? Like 12, almost 12:15 on your, do whatever you want to do from now until 1. But if you want to stay for the sneak preview of the Black American Civil Rights and Roosevelt's exhibit, you'll meet in the museum and library near the exhibit entrance. Is that correct? I got that right? 1 o'clock. Front lobby at 1 o'clock. And they're going to give you a sneak preview, which is really, really special because it doesn't open yet. So as Bill mentioned this morning, it's a really wonderful opportunity to stay and see what they've been working on for years. So thank you so much for that. Board members, we're going to take about a 15-minute break, and then we are going to convene in room A, which is right next door. So I want to get a couple more pictures, and then we're going to meet in 15 minutes. So thank you everyone for being here. I look forward to see you in person again next year for an annual meeting, but I'm sure I'll see some of you before then. So thank you.